Let's get it going in 3, 2. Hey, everybody. Welcome into a Flyers game preview. I'm Kevin Durso. Tonight, the Flyers take on the Washington Capitals at 7 p.m. Before we get started, this video is brought to you as part of Flyers coverage on SportsTalkPhilly.com and the YWT podcast. Get all of your Flyers coverage at SportsTalkPhilly.com. Follow me on Twitter at Kevin_Durso and find more coverage from me over at 97.3ESPN.com. And be sure to listen and subscribe to the YWT podcast. So let's get started with today's game. Flyers taking on the Washington Capitals for the third time this week. And obviously, it's been a struggle this week, and it's been a struggle for the last 2 weeks for the Flyers. They've been struggling to find ways to win games. They've had a lot of bounces go against them. They've struggled with defensive coverages. They look like a team in need of a lot of help, and it's not like help is coming anytime soon. They're going to need to find a way to make this work to get back into the playoff race. They're not in the playoff race at the moment, and these are the types of games they need to win. They need to beat teams that are ahead of them in the standings in regulation and find ways to go out and win these games. This is certainly one of the bigger tests for the Flyers at this point in the season. You're getting closer and closer to the halfway point. You need to make something happen, and you really need to come out and play a game that shows that you have the ability to compete with these types of teams, because now Washington is starting to drift into Boston territory where the Flyers have struggled against Boston. They can't find a way to win games against them. They've been in position to win games against them. They just can't finish it off. And it looks like that's a team that will always be a thorn in their side, and it will always be the team that they have to overcome in order to make the playoffs and then make that playoff push. Washington is going to become that team if the Flyers go 0-3 against Washington this week. And it turns into a stretch where now they're 1-3 against the Capitals on the season. And you need to have that time, or you're losing that time, I should say, to get back into the standings that way. And you're losing that time to show that you can keep up with a team like that. When the Islanders come and play, or when the Flyers play the Islanders 3 times next week, twice on the road, once at home, it's going to be the same story. You can't get caught up and fall behind a team and start to watch that team become a struggling point, because if you do, it's just going to lend to more of the problems that you're having, and it's going to show more and more that you're not on their level. So this is a big game for the Flyers. It's just like Tuesday, except for the fact that this is a much tougher opponent, and you need to find a way. You just got to find a way and go out there and play your game and start doing the things that made you successful early in the year. Because, yes, they had some of these struggles, but they were able to overcome them. Right now, they're not overcoming anything, and that's the greater concern. Let's go into the goalie matchup for this game. We'll start with the Flyers. Brian Elliott back in goal. It's a bit of a surprise because you kind of thought that the last game for him, he gave up 4 goals. It wasn't necessarily all his fault, but it showed that the problems for the team are less about the goaltender and more about the defensive coverages. That being said, Carter Hart still is working through a rough patch. They want to give him more time, so Brian Elliott's getting the start. And Brian Elliott, despite that game on Thursday, giving up 4 goals and all of that, is still off to a really good start this season. The 7-3 record, the 9/11 save percentage is on par with where he is at usually in his career. His 245 goals against is significantly better at the moment, so those are all things that favor him. But he needs to be better collectively, just like the rest of the team does. Everybody can be better, and you need to get the best performance you can out of your goaltender. Elliott was certainly very good early in the game, especially in that first period. The Flyers did fall behind 2-1 in the first period on Thursday, but it could have easily been 4-1 then, as it was at the end of the second period, because of how much pressure Washington was putting on the Flyers. So now Brian Elliott gets the chance to respond and rebound in that type of game as well. On the other side, Ilya Samsonov for the Capitals, and this is really no surprise. He had a great game on Sunday. He's had a great game on Thursday, and now he's going to get a chance to complete a really strong week. And he's done outstanding since coming back from the COVID list. You can see the numbers. The 907 save percentage is kind of an average result at this point, but it's certainly been better over the last couple of games. And the 255 goals against is right in that range of where you want to be as well. So the 4-0-1 record is really what stands out, though, is that he's had success all season long. He hasn't lost a game in regulation all season. That's something that the Flyers want to try to break up if they can, but obviously you're trying your best here to just focus on getting a win somehow and getting yourself back into that race as best you can. So that's the bigger thing, but it's going to take solving Samsonov, and the Flyers started to do that later in the game. They got on the board with the power play goal in the first period, and then they got 2 back in the third period. And those 2 back in the third period really make a difference, because it does show that you have the ability to score on Ilya Samsonov. It's just a matter of finding a way to do that while preventing goals the other way. That's more the bigger thing. So we'll see how that goes for the Flyers in this game. Let's go to the players to watch. For the Flyers, Sean Couturier, and it just seems like every time Couturier's been on the ice in these last few games, something good is happening. You know, he is a -3 rating, but that's usually not about one player. Sometimes it's not necessarily about Couturier. It can be about a different player, I should say. So it can be a blown coverage. It can be a mistake that goes the other way, and Couturier is not factoring into that play. So that's why he's on the ice when the team gets scored against. I believe even another one can be at the end of a game like it was on Thursday. An empty net goal against when Couturier's out there, because Couturier's out there as part of your offensive push, and he gets scored on into an empty net. It happens. You're trying to push back. That can be a big reason for the plus-minus result. So it's a skewed stat that doesn't really resonate too much. What I see is a guy who's also put up 5 points in the last 5 games and had a real responsibility at this point for making the Flyers successful in the offensive zone. It seems like when he's out there, something good happens, whether it's a lot of pressure in the offensive zone, sustained offensive possession, drawing a penalty. Maybe it is finding a way to score a goal, but something good is happening when he's on the ice, and that needs to continue. On the other side, if I feel like a broken record by picking Alex Ovechkin so much, but here's the thing with Ovechkin. First of all, he scored in every game against the Flyers this season after not scoring against them all of last season. He's got 4 goals in 3 games. He had 2 in that first game, 1 in each of the last 2. And that's creating something significant when it comes to Ovechkin, because he's coming up on multiple milestones at this point. And I'll read off just a few of them here to tell you where he's closing in on. First of all, and this is kind of an obscure one to an extent, but he's 3 shots on goal away from passing Jaromir Jagr for second all time with 5,638 shots on goal. That's a lot of shots. He's only behind Ray Bourque, who has 6,209. That's an incredible stat in and of itself. This is the one that, or these next 2, though, are the ones that I look at, because he's closing in on milestones that you start to watch for, and people are already counting down to them, but now you're within range where it could happen quite possibly within a game. He's 3 points away from 1,300 for his career, and he's 3 goals away from passing Phil Esposito for 6th all-time. He's 2 away from tying him. These are things that can happen tonight, and that's the scary thought. I mean, remember last year when Ovechkin was closing in on 700, that was the thing when they went in to play the Flyers. It could happen in this game, and it didn't, but it could, and it was part of a prolonged slump for Ovechkin when it came to scoring. He's kind of going through one now to an extent, because he's only got 2 goals in the last 5 games, and both happen to have come against the Flyers. So maybe that's the recipe for success right now. I don't know. Bottom line is, Ovechkin's had a lot of success this season against the Flyers, and he's closing in on milestones, and usually he's pumped up and poised to do something significant with those. So I'm looking to see if that comes to be in that situation, because it very well could as this game goes on, and you're going to want to keep an eye out for that for sure. That's going to do it for this Flyers game preview. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, first and foremost. Check back here after the game. Kyle will have a post-game video for you. I'll be back with another preview ahead of Monday's game against the Rangers. They play the Islanders next week, though, as well. So a lot of New York games on the schedule. So against the Rangers. Until then, you can catch up with the most recent episode of the YWT podcast. This is a Saturday game, so there will be a new recording of the YWT podcast on Sunday, and we'll have that out for you Sunday night, Monday morning. Once again, be sure to subscribe to the YWT podcast on YouTube to be notified of all of our game previews, game recaps, and new episodes of the show. Be sure to follow along during tonight's game. I'll have coverage on Twitter at Kevin_Durso. Game updates will be over at Flyerdelphia on Twitter. You can check out my game preview before the game, post-game recap, and 5 takeaways after the game at sportstalkphilly.com and 97.3 ESPN.com. So with that, enjoy the game, and we will